Hi everyone and welcome back to another video review by Miro Lessons. This time we're going to share with you all the things that I like and the very few things I dislike about the Fujifilm X-T2. The X-T2 was one of the most highly anticipated mirrorless cameras of 2016. We had an excellent sneak peek at how the new sensor and autofocus system performed thanks to the X Pro 2 that was released earlier on in the year. When the camera was finally released, it met all the expectations. It proved to be not just a relevant upgrade in comparison to its predecessor, but also one of the most popular mirrorless cameras today. I've been using this camera for several months now and I already published a lot of articles on our comparison website. All that was missing was a full review, so let's get started. The X-T2 is the best mirrorless cameras I have the chance to use so far when it comes to autofocus. Fujifilm really managed to turn what was once its weakest into its strongest point. Only the a6300 or a6500 from Sony can really match its performance. The camera focuses really fast and accurately in single f mode, regardless of the light conditions. The toughest test I put it through was during this Halloween photo walk and I was surprised by how reactive the camera was. Certainly a few shots came out slightly soft, but given that I was almost in complete darkness, the X-T2 really did a fine job. Eye and face detection have been improved over the previous X-T1. Yes, the camera can still occasionally misfocus on the nose or other parts of the person's face, but I find it much more reliable now, even with older lenses. Speaking of older Fujinon lenses like the 35mm 1.4, the camera does focus fast, but to really get the best performance, you need to mount the most recent lenses that have a faster autofocus motor, such as the 2.8 Pro Zooms, the 23mm or 45mm f2, or even the 90mm f2. When I tested the X Pro 2 back in March last year, I was already surprised by the performance. I used the camera for birds in flight, a motorbike race, and an evening football game, and overall my keeper rate was always good. You can choose the single AF point and vary its size in 5 steps. Then we have Zone AF, which is my go-to setting for every kind of action photography, and you can choose a 3x3, 5x5 or 7x7 grid. I really find the need to use wide tracking, which has the camera track the subject across the entire frame. Zone AF is always enough for my needs. The X-T2 has the same autofocus system as the X Pro 2, with one small yet very important difference: the AFC custom settings that allow you to control the behavior of the autofocus depending on the type of subject you are photographing. These are advanced settings, which means that if they're not used correctly, your hit rate can decrease significantly. However, once the setup is right, they can indeed make a difference. These first 5 sets can give you good results with a variety of subjects. For example, set 3 is recommended for cars on a racetrack, so the autofocus will pay more attention to the acceleration and deceleration of the subject. But these settings are not just useful to tell the camera how fast the subject is. They also tell the camera how reactive the autofocus needs to be. With set 2, for example, the X-T2 is less likely to change the focus point when the subject passes momentarily behind an obstacle like a pole or a tree. These 5 presets work well overall, but in some situations they might not be enough. This is where the 6th set can come in handy. I experimented with set 6 mainly for birds in flight. It took some time to find the optimal combination. With the wrong settings, my keeper rate was a disappointing 40 or 50%. I tried multiple other combinations until I finally found the optimal values, increasing my keeper rate to 70–75%. So the AFC custom settings can indeed improve the results, but then I looked back at all the images I took with the X Pro 2, which doesn't have these advanced settings, and honestly what I found is that the keeper rate wasn't that different. Now, this is positive because it tells us that the autofocus system with the 2 cameras is inherently good, but it also tells us that these AFC custom settings won't always make a difference. You really need a specific situation to make the most out of them. Finally, the camera really surprised me for video recording. The continuous autofocus proved very reliable with few hesitation or back and forth movements even in low light conditions. The X-T1 was already an excellent camera in terms of ease of use, but it had a few imperfections, which could only be expected from a first-generation model. The X-T2 fixes these small drawbacks and comes very close to perfection. Despite being very similar to the X-T1 when it comes to size, weight and weather sealing, the X-T2 feels more solid and has a better design. Now the reason for this is found in all the small details. The various dials are larger and many buttons have more depth, which makes them easier to press. The ISO and shutter speed dials can be unlocked or locked with the central button. The front grip is slightly more embossed, which adds a little bit of comfort, although it still isn't quite good enough when using larger lenses. An optional grip or thumb rest can be a nice addition in that case. The SD card and connector doors are more robust and you can get 2 slots with UHS 2 compatibility. On the rear, the most noteworthy addition is the AF joystick that allows you to move the autofocus point at any time. There are 8 custom buttons, a quick menu with 16 blocks that can be personalized, and a My Menu page where you can add shortcuts to other settings. The menu system itself is also very well organized and is one of my favorites among mirrorless cameras. The EVF is still one of the best you can find. It is large, bright and easy to use thanks to its very short lag. It proves reliable even when focusing manually. The LCD has a clever 3-way tilting mechanism that allows you to use it in vertical mode without the need to flip it to the side. It's another thing I really like about the camera. There isn't a lot I can really complain about, and the following are more nitpickings than anything else. I still find the sub-dials to be a little bit stiff, for example. I wish there could be an option to enter the menu on the page where you left off, and there are some settings that you can't add to the My Menu page and I don't understand why, like for example the memory card slot options. But these are the only annoyances I can think of. The main difference I found in comparison to the previous 16 megapixel sensor has more to do with versatility than a drastic improvement in quality. Yes, the new sensor gives you slightly more dynamic range in the highlights and of course more resolution. But what I really appreciate is the sensitivity range that is now available in both RAW and JPEG formats at all values. This makes ISO 12800, for example, very usable in many situations and noise remains very contained. The Fujifilm X-T2 sensor has always generated some controversy. Some people say that it brings you better sharpness and colors, while others beg to differ. In my personal experience, there are things that I like about this sensor, others that I don't feel bring any substantial advantages, and yes, there are a few drawbacks. But then if I analyze the image quality in general, my view remains more than positive. The X-Trans files give excellent results at high ISOs when using the RAW files, for example, where there isn't much color noise to reduce. Thanks to the different arrangements of pixels, it also provides excellent results in black and white at low and high ISOs. Another thing I like is the film simulation modes, which is another way of saying color profiles. Yes, they only affect the JPEGs, but they can give you a beautiful color palette, and the monochrome profiles such as acros are also very nice to use. They make JPEGs straight out of the camera very usable at low ISOs. One drawback is that the RAW files can require a more specialized software to get better details. Iridium Developer is still the best example in my opinion, but that doesn't stop me from using Adobe Lightroom most of the time out of convenience. However, if I really want to draw out a lot of detail, then I know I need to use something else. With JPEGs and manual white balance, the X-T2 can have a more dominant tint that often goes towards green. This can be noticeable especially with skin tones. Auto white balance gives better results, otherwise you need to tweak the white balance shift to get a more natural result if you prefer to work with manual Kelvin values. Another annoying thing I noticed with this new 24 megapixel sensor is purple flare, which is a sensor flare and not a lens flare. I encountered it with the X-Pro 2 and the X-T2 with both zooms and prime lenses. It occurs only in certain backlit conditions. If I enlarge the image, we can notice a weird grid artifact. However, this can be easily avoided because the purple flare is visible in the EVF or LCD monitor. It is a matter of slightly altering the composition by a few millimeters to get rid of it. The X-T2 is the first Fujifilm camera with 4K capabilities, and this is another aspect that I really like. Combined with the film simulation modes, you can get beautiful results and great color straight out of the camera that I've rarely seen on any other mirrorless. The footage is sharp and crisp, and the camera handles high ISOs very well up to 6400. The shadow and highlight settings work for video too, which allow you to control dynamic range a little better. However, for superior results, you need a real log profile, in this case the F-Log, which unfortunately is only available via the HDMI output. This means you need an external recorder to be able to use it. In Full HD, the camera can go up to 60 frames per second. The new processor and sensor of the X-T2 deliver better quality with more sharpness, less aliasing and moire in comparison to the X-T1. One thing that I found annoying sometimes is that you can't record video unless you go into movie mode. You can't assign movie recording to a function button. You can adjust the volume in 20 steps and there is a 3.5mm input for microphones. However, you need the optional battery grip to use headphones. The X-T2 isn't as complete as other cameras when it comes to video functionalities. You don't have a lot of advanced settings, and some of the conclusions I came to for stills, like for example the color shift with the white balance, also apply to movie recording. However, once you figured out all these settings and you know how the camera behaves, you can get really beautiful colors, and this is why I think the X-T2 is a very nice 4K camera to use. The X-T2 battery performs well enough in normal conditions. To extend the battery life, you can turn the camera off when not using it or turn off certain settings such as the boost mode to reduce the performance. However, when using continuous shooting speed or recording 4K video, the battery starts to drop quickly. The camera comes with a new NPW126S battery that improves battery life a little in comparison to the previous one, but it doesn't make a huge difference. What I like, however, is that the battery life is now displayed in percentages and the indication is very accurate. Another advantage with the X-T2 is the possibility to charge it via USB. Then of course you have the option of a battery grip if you need more power. There aren't any real negative things I found about the X-T2. I already listed some of these nitpickings in the various chapters, and here I can add a few more thoughts. One of the things is that you need to buy the optional battery grip to unlock certain features such as, for example, shooting at 11 frames per second and 4K recording up to 30 minutes. Now the camera alone can shoot up to 8 frames per second, which is not bad, and the buffer is very good when using UHS-2 cards. However, at that speed you don't have live view. This can make it harder to follow very fast subjects due to the delay between what is happening in real time and what you see in DVF. The sensor has a faster readout, so rolling shutter isn't as severe as it was before, but distortion is still present for action. Finally, the exposure bracketing options are still limited to 3 shots and lack more options in comparison to other cameras. All that said, I'm really just nitpicking here, because none of these small drawbacks penalize your experience with the camera. As you can see, I have a very positive opinion about the X-T2. I feel that the camera is close to perfection when it comes to ease of use. In fact, I rarely need to dig into the user manual to understand its settings, unlike many other cameras. The image quality has a few small drawbacks, but overall it is very good and you can appreciate the resolution, dynamic range and high ISO performance. The color profiles are beautiful, which could only be expected from a Fuji camera. The autofocus is the best I've used so far. It's fast, reactive and reliable, and there are advanced options to help you fine-tune the performance in specific situations. There are a few small drawbacks as explained earlier, but nothing that would prevent me from recommending this camera. It is excellent and currently one of the best mirrorless cameras you can find on the market today. And if it follows the same path of its predecessor, it is likely that the X-T2 will receive interesting firmware updates in the future. So, as usual, thank you for watching. Don't hesitate to leave a comment if you have any questions. Please like and subscribe, and see you soon. Bye bye!